Nagas are coming to Earth to help free humanity. Question your reality, then change it. ThunderWizard.com is the website that supports this YouTube channel. Please go there and subscribe. Find out all the different ways that you can empower yourself with all of the different teachings and techniques that I give to you, higher dimensional energy practices, personal mentorship, spiritual counseling, live Zoom group classes. My books can be found at michaelwilliamdenny.com. Please join us every Wednesday and Saturday at 8:30 p.m. Eastern for free, live guided interdimensional meditations to bring the 5D solar flash event. Today we're going to be talking about Nagas and how they are coming closer to our dimension, our frequency. Why exactly are they here? What's the difference between them and reptilians? And I do have a list, so stay tuned for the whole video, even if I go off on tangents, because we're going to be talking about all of these different things having to do with Nagas. So, I have been today, I'm in kind of a normal headspace at the moment, but all day today I have been shifting in and out of different dimensional spaces. I have been in communication today with the Nagas, which is why I'm making this video. I think it's really helpful to understand what is happening. We are going through a shift. Whatever is coming, whatever the 5D thing is, what the solar flash event, ascension, whatever is, however it's going to manifest itself, nobody can deny that we are going through an absolutely huge shift. And those of you who are energetically sensitive, you can feel this energetic shift. Those of you who are connected to and or communicating with light beings, higher dimensional beings, the angels, ETs, whatever words you want to use, the gods, the spirits, the ancestors. If you're doing this work, you can feel the increase in interdimensional, transdimensional communication. The beings on the other side of our dimension are working very hard to communicate with us and to help us shift. It's challenging. It is very challenging for most of us, myself included, because our third dimensional mind, our third dimensional body, our third dimensional reality, the consensus that we're in, is designed to keep us in this very limited black and white shadow world. And so when these higher frequencies come to us and start shifting us up, everything inside of us rebels, and it manifests in all different kinds of ways. It manifests in anxiety, in depression, in anger, in paranoia. So ironically, there's a lot of people whose instincts are telling them that there is something that is happening to them against their will. You call it the matrix, you can call it whatever you want. And so ironically, what ends up happening is that instead of awakening to their internal soul essence, they become more obsessed with conspiracies. And then you end up living in this weird half-truth, half-conflated reality that is actually being manipulated by the very forces people want to become awakened to. So it's a very challenging time, and it really does take some finesse to be able to navigate this. So I'm here to help you with this. This is my job. This is why I am here on this planet right now. It's the only thing keeping me here, is that I am here to guide and help anybody who wants it. So I hope that if you haven't been on my channel before, I hope you'll listen and You don't have to accept everything I say. It's okay to not agree with me. Put the things on the side that maybe you have difficulty accepting or that you don't agree with. Focus on the things you do agree with me about, and give yourself the right to keep going back and looking at things and being willing to change. Listen, if you've followed me for more than 4 years, you have seen me completely, totally change on so many different subjects. And when I become aware, I come to the channel and I will entitle videos I was wrong about. And I've been wrong about just about everything. So it's okay to be wrong. But I guarantee you, if your deepest desire is to know the truth more than you want to be comfortable, if you want to know the truth more than you want to be comfortable, you will find the truth. Before we get into this, we are going to be talking about Naga beings, who technically are reptilian beings. So a lot of people conflate the Nagas with reptilians, and they are completely different. I'm not going to get into exactly what reptilians are. If you choose to believe in evil reptilians that are trying to trap your soul and force you to reincarnate, I'm not going to talk you out of that in this video. But I will strongly suggest that you be willing to understand that you are more powerful than any negative force, spiritual or physical. That is the most important lesson, is that we have more power when we're attached to our soul than anything. Doesn't matter how powerful it is. In fact, I'm going to go so far as to say that these live guided meditations that we do twice a week, and I'm aware of the grandiosity of what I'm about to say, but those meditations are literally the most powerful actions that are being taken in this third dimensional reality. And there's a very small amount of people in comparison to the rest of the population on this planet. There's, at any given live guided meditation, anywhere between 20 and 30 people are there. And then maybe 200 or 300 or a few hundred might watch it. How long they're watching, I don't know. But compare that to the billions of people that are on this planet and the millions of people that are watching all kinds of, cat videos or, whatever. There's no shortage of people on this planet who aren't doing these practices, but I'm telling you, in my experience, and I'm convinced of this, and this might make more sense as we go on, the most powerful thing anybody on this planet can do is do these meditations and learn what the light beings are teaching us. If you are on this channel and you are doing these meditations, I can also say categorically, regardless of your life state, no matter if your life is totally screwed up and you're not successful or happy or whatever it is, if you're showing up for these meditations and you're doing them, it does mean that you are in fact a star seed. A star seed is an extremely powerful being from a higher dimension, probably originally from another civilization or another time, and you have chosen to incarnate here for the specific purpose of shifting this earth to the next level. And if you can hang on to those understandings, you are more powerful than anything or anybody. Now, the great thing about the work that we're doing in these meditations is that we are completely underneath the radar of the powers that be. I mean, look at what's happening to their least favorite presidential candidate. They've tried to off him 3 times that we know of. They're more interested in whistleblowers and people exposing them in the news than they are in what's happening spiritually and energetically. Don't get me wrong, they understand this. They have access to very ancient technology going all the way back, 20, 30,000 years. They have very powerful ancient technology. They have very powerful, we can call it black magic, spiritual practices, but the nature of those practices keep them in the third dimensional frequency, which means they're completely, totally clueless of what we're doing. It also makes them completely helpless against what we are doing. Now, that is my belief based on my experience. You can have your own experience, but I welcome you to be a part of this. If your goal is to take down the dark forces running this world and to achieve connection to what people call 5D or whatever words you want to use, then I invite you to continue to be a part of this channel. So we have beings that are working with us. These beings are also completely off the radar of anything and everybody, and they are unbelievably powerful, and they are completely devoted to you. So let's get some assumptions here. Remember, your assumptions, your base beliefs determine your actions, and your actions determine your reality. So if you have a wrong assumption, like for instance, if you have the assumption that there are evil reptilians that have the power to force you to reincarnate so they can feed off your soul, that base assumption will limit your actions, which will limit your karmic reality. So if you want to get beyond that, you have to be willing to change your assumptions, which may mean you have to take a look at your attachments. Now, when I talk like that, people get very upset. You would think that they would have the opposite experience if I said you don't ever have to worry about demons, dark forces, never have to worry about reptilians. There's no false beings of light that have any power over you. Now you would think people would go, oh, thank God, that was such a frightening thing to believe. I'm so glad that I have hope now. That's not the response of people who believe that way. Their response is to get angry at me and to fight back and hold on to that belief. So what is the logic behind holding on to a belief that tells you you're screwed and that there's nothing you can do to free yourself? It's because we have an addiction. We have an addiction, the same reason people go to horror movies. There's all kinds of chemicals that are released that give you a false feeling of protection. So when people are angry and afraid and they have an enemy in their mind about, this is my enemy, it gives them a false feeling of safety. When in reality, when you surrender to the infinite power within you, that is actually initially a very frightening experience. That is what is happening with the world right now. That is what's happening, when people call it ascension symptoms. It's simply your third dimensional mind and body fighting against surrendering to a higher dimensional blissful experience, which is what is heading for us. All right, I don't want to get off topic here, so let's get the list going. So who are the Nagas and why it's important? So the Nagas are the lords of karmic timelines. So our timeline is shifting. That's the reason why we have more access to the Nagas than ever before. Now I've got this cute picture here of this sexy Naga goddess. So there is. I'm going to make an assumption here. I'm willing to be wrong about it, but this is based on my experience and my research. There are at least two classes of Nagas. And one is, which I'm referring to here, these are the lords of timelines. Not just the lords of timelines in our three-dimensional universe. They are the lords of timelines in all dimensions and in all universes. And they are the lords of the timelines of the gods themselves. So even the gods are subject to the timeline creations that are made by these Naga beings. Now, at first glance, when I tell you that these beings have the power to create timelines, which means, when a timeline is created, it means that the entire simulation of that timeline becomes all encompassing. So it means they have the power to snap their fingers and put you in a dream where you completely forget who you just were, just like what happens in dreams. You know, when you wake up from a dream, it happens to me every day. I mean, I dream a lot, and I wake up and I will just have had some dream where I'm a different person in a different world doing something, and that person has no memory of me or who I am. That happens a lot. So these beings have that power. You can just snap their fingers, and you are now in a new timeline, having a new reality, a new experience. And there's nothing you can do to prevent that or prevent the all-encompassing experience of that. So that's a lot of power, and that if you feel resistant to that, that's normal. That's a normal reaction. Why does anybody want to feel controlled? Now here's what you don't understand. They craft these because these are based on your choices. So remember, let's go back in time to what I said earlier. Your assumptions create your beliefs, which create your intentions, which create your actions, which creates your reality. So really what's happening is on an unconscious level. Consciously, everybody consciously wants what's good for them. Very few people, unless they're severely damaged psychologically. Everybody consciously wants what's best for them. So, for instance, people who complain about money, right? I've certainly done that. But maybe you know people like this, or maybe you're one of these people. There are people who talk about how no matter how hard they try, they just can't get out of debt. No matter how hard they try, another example, no matter what they do, they always attract destructive, abusive relationships. So consciously, they want to be happy, they want to be healthy, they want to be prosperous. But they have this experience that no matter what they do, the opposite happens. Well, that's because unconsciously. Now, what does unconscious mean? It means that you're not aware of it. You know, I tell people that when they leave, sometimes people will leave, all kinds of crazy comments, and I'll say, you're projecting. And they'll go, I'm not projecting, I'm just telling the truth. Well, that means you don't understand what projection means. Projection means that you are unconsciously, means you completely, totally unaware of your actions. And you are unconsciously projecting what's going on inside of you. You want to see projection in action? All you have to do is watch political candidates. I'm not going to pick a side, but you can probably guess which side, if I were to pick, I would choose. So the side that I assume both of us don't like, the things that they accuse the opposition of doing is exactly what they do. That's called projection. You project onto others. Here's another good example. Somebody who cheats on their spouse or on their partner. One of the things those people do is they get their phone and they look through their phone. Who are you texting? I know you're texting somebody. Who is this person? Are you having an affair with them? What are you doing behind my back? Well, it's because they are unconsciously incredibly frightened and full of guilt about their extramarital affairs, so they project it onto their partner. They're not conscious that they're doing it. They actually believe it as they're looking for the person's text. And so that's projection. But the point is that nobody can say, I'm not projecting. Nobody can say that. The only thing somebody can say is, to the best of my knowledge, I'm not aware. If I'm projecting, I am not consciously aware of it. That is the truest and only thing anybody can say. Somebody who says, I'm not projecting, it means they don't know what it means. So if somebody says to me that I'm projecting, I stop and I go, I wonder if I am. Because if I am, I wouldn't be aware of it. Now, just because somebody accuses you of that doesn't mean you're doing it. Anyway, once again, I'm getting off in the weeds. So this is why I make these lists. So Nagas are the lords of karmic timelines. Even the gods are subject to the Nagas' influence. We already talked about that. Nagas direct timelines based on human decisions. Now, this is important. Just because somebody is unconscious, meaning they're not aware, it doesn't mean that their actions aren't deliberate. So in other words, I've had this experience where I've dated people who had serious, unresolved childhood or abuse issues or trauma issues. And those people have all kinds of really dysfunctional reactions to intimacy. So in other words, when they feel that they're being loved, you would think they go, oh my God, finally somebody loves me. But what ends up happening is that they end up responding in the opposite way. There's all kinds of psychological terms for it, and I forget those terms as I am right now. But the point is that even though they're in this state where somebody's actually loving them and treating them well, they're not used to it, they don't understand it, and it actually frightens them. It makes them feel vulnerable, and when they feel vulnerable, they feel they're going to be attacked and destroyed. So they sabotage a good relationship when it's going well by attacking the other person, projecting onto the other person, or acting out destructively, like going and having an affair or something like that. Now, this isn't something they consciously do. In fact, they'll I'm not trying to do this. I don't mean to do it. I don't want to do that. I love you. I care about you. I don't know why I do these things. The fact that they're not aware of what they're doing, or that they don't have any control over what they're doing, or their conscious control, it doesn't change the fact that unconsciously it was a deliberate action. This is why there is no excuse. This is why karma exists. Because psychologists would call them defense mechanisms. So how they come about is at some point, usually in childhood, because that's when we form all of our responses, and our habits, and our, we are programmed to respond certain ways. But these are done deliberately. So in the example of the person who has an emotional wound, and when they're loved, they respond in this dysfunctional opposite manner. They're not conscious of it. They may not even know they're doing it at the time, but afterwards they realize that they didn't mean to do that. What ends up happening is that if you go back farther in time, there's a first wound. They're wounded deeply. And that pain puts them in a position where they have to make a decision to try and feel healthy. Now, if we were all completely connected to our souls, which, come into the third dimension, there's a disconnection. But if we were all connected to our souls and somebody did something harmful to us, we would be connected to ourselves and our spirit, and our conscious decision would be to go, wow, that's really painful what that person just did. It's really it hurts so bad, but you know what? It's got nothing to do with me. I know that I'm wonderful and beautiful. I can feel the love. I'm going to choose to reach out and be loved by the universe, and I'm going to have compassion for this person, and I'm not going to judge them. And in the future, I'm not going to do that to anybody. I'm going to make sure that I always treat people. That would be the perfect ideal, but you can see those are conscious decisions that are a conscious, constructive, deliberate decision to act in a certain way. The opposite happens when people make unconscious, deliberate decisions. So what usually happens is people are hurt in some way. Now, they don't respond from their soul because they're in the third dimension. So they respond in a defensive way, which means they tell themselves they're not lovable, they're not worthy, and they have to be careful. Human beings are untrustworthy, and so they come up with some kind of defense in order to survive the pain or hopefully avoid it. And so what ends up happening is that they make a deliberate decision to lie to themselves, to pretend to be something that they're not, to devalue themselves, and whether you're lashing out and destroying somebody or whether you're ghosting somebody and running away from them, it's the same deliberate unconscious action, the deliberate decision to defend yourself by running away from your true soul essence. Okay, so this is why if you're connected to your soul, you have nothing to worry about. You will never harm other people, and you will never leave yourself vulnerable to be continually harmed by others. This is why anybody who's truly connected to their soul is never attacked by demons. So people come onto the channel, new people, and people have contacted me. In case you don't know, I used to be an exorcist. I stopped doing it for this very reason. I came to find out that the people who were being possessed or attacked by evil spirits were experiencing that because they themselves were still in denial over deep wounds that had happened to them either in this lifetime or past lifetimes, usually both. And so their defense mechanism was to run away from that pain. When you do that, you send out an unconscious message. It's a deliberate message, but you're not aware that you're doing it. You send out a deliberate message on the astral plane that asks for any being to come and distract you from your pain. So what ends up happening is that dark forces come to you and they feed off of your negative emotions. So there's a deal that's made, and the dark entity will make a deal with you and say, I will attack you in these ways, physically, psychologically, I will possess you, I'll do all this. But you have to agree to let me do that. And in exchange for that, I will distract you from your real pain. I will help you deny it. You can blame me for all of your problems. But in exchange, I have to feed off of your negative energy, which will reduce your life force and perhaps your life on this earth. And so do you agree to do that? And the person is in so much pain on an unconscious level, they say, yes, I'm going to allow that, so that I can be distracted from my pain. Now, this is happening on an unconscious level. They are not conscious that they're doing it. So this is why if you're coming onto my channel talking about being attacked by demons, I usually give you a link to what demons really are. But the good news is you don't have to worry about any of that. I'm not here to take away your pain instantly. You're going to have to continue to make decisions. You can do the 12 steps to 5D. If you do the 12 steps to 5D on my channel and you do it thoroughly, or better yet, you find a 12-step program and work the 12 steps, I guarantee you eventually you will be freed from any negative influence. If you work with the light beings, if you do the live guided interdimensional meditations and work with the light beings, you will be given the opportunity to be freed from all of that. But the payment is you're going to have to face your pain. You can't avoid it. You're going to have to face your issues and you're going to have to heal. If you're not willing to do that, I can't make any promises for you. Let's keep going. So the Nagas direct timelines based on human decisions. So people end up in really bad karmic situations of their own making. The Nagas are just there. They're like, they're conscious, deliberate weaving of these different timelines is, okay, what is going to bring healing and awakening to this person in the fastest way? Well, we're going to have to create an illusion that will pull them in, and they'll have to be forced to look at this. Your experience is that you're experiencing a really bad life and you want to blame somebody. You want to blame the Nagas, you can. They are crafting these karmic timelines for you. But what you don't understand is that you've literally written out the basics of the script and you've handed it to them and they're like, okay. So you want to be in denial about this. You're unwilling to look at yourself here. You're unwilling to grow here, and you want me to help you evolve. So I'm going to create some karma that you have to face, which will force you to be confronted with your own internal defense mechanisms. And then you will have to choose to move beyond it. If you choose not to move beyond it, you want to run further away from it, we will create timelines that will take you deeper into these illusions, into these false realities until you awaken. So again, you're the one that is running the show. You're in control of it. But when you're in the midst of one of these horrific karmic timelines, you don't know that. And so these beings become frightening. But they love you so much they're willing to allow you to create whatever discomfort you want in order to free you. All right, let's keep going. The universal egg, Shiva at the top, Nagas at the bottom. So, when we do these live guided interdimensional meditations, as you noticed, oftentimes I will lead you into deep within the earth into what is called Naga Loka. Now, for those of you who have been doing this, I'm here to tell you that Naga Loka is not really at the center of the earth. But going into the earth and going into, the underworld, we are headed towards there. So I'm here to tell you that whatever hell is, like the horrible, just this, the worst kind of torture hell, that is not Naga Loka. Naga Loka is beneath that. It is as beautiful and wonderful as the highest heavens. But between here and Naga Loka, there are hells, real horrible places. And if you were listening to what I just said, the only way you get to those horrible places is if you continue to run away from your own soul, seeking more and more simplistic, dualistic realities. You will end up in one of those places. But here's the good news. Unlike what you've been told in religion, if you end up in one of these horrible hells, all you have to do is simply ask to be relieved. People who have had past or near-death experiences, very few of them will end up going to a hell. It does happen. But you'll find out that they lived their life in a way very negatively, filled with emptiness and negativity, and with real disdain towards their own spirit or spirituality, or they were in some kind of really legalistic religion or something like that. And when they end up in these horrible hells, the moment that they ask whatever they believe God to be, the moment that they ask God or Jesus or Buddha or Krishna or whomever, the moment that they ask for God's help, they are immediately taken out. Because the Nagas are waiting to take you out of your hell. That's their job. Their job is to help you get out of your own self-created hell as quickly as possible. So imagine a big egg. Now this big egg at the top would be like the top of Mount Kailash. And sitting on the top of that is Shiva. Shiva represents the highest consciousness. So Shiva is sitting at the top of that egg, and he is complete total liberation, total consciousness beyond all of the dimensions. Now this egg contains all of the dimensions in it, going higher and higher and higher and higher. If you've experienced higher dimensions, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, then you know how blissful and amazing these dimensions are. Well, Shiva sits atop all of them, and they all converge right where he's sitting. And that's the top of the egg. And the egg goes down, and then we would be, sort of towards the bottom, but at the middle. This is the third dimension. And then below the third dimension, you get these lower dimensions and down into the hells. And then you go all the way down to the bottom of that where the egg comes together. All of the dimensions, all of the timelines, all of the universes come together at the bottom of this egg, and that is Naga Loka. and there the Nagas are. And the Nagas, literally, imagine all of the lines, imagining all of these dimensions and timelines and universes like lines making up this egg. They all come together to form one single point at the very bottom. And they can touch it, meaning they can touch everything. They can influence everything from where they are. And this is why they have more power than the gods, because the gods are somewhere between our third dimension and the top of the egg, where the highest heaven is, where Shiva is sitting. The gods are in between that. They might be really high up, but they're still inside of the egg, which means they're still being influenced by the Nagas. This is how powerful these beings are. So I was going to tell you there's at least two kinds of Naga beings that I'm aware of. I'm willing to be wrong on this, but there is actually a planet, and I don't know where the planet is. I'm getting hit with energy as I say this. I don't know where the planet is, but I know that there are beings there that are Nagas, and they're physical beings. They have physical bodies that are cobras, or life-sized, human-sized, or larger cobras. They are filled with kundalini, which is why they're cobras. They're focused only on the power of kundalini. And a snake is basically just a spinal column that moves around. It doesn't have any arms or legs. It's really just all about that spine moving around. So they are focused completely on the power of kundalini. Again, as I'm talking about, I'm getting filled with their energy. And so they can manifest that way. And when you see them, if you were to see them, you would see them as these translucent beings, and you would be able to see like this electric blue, purple, different colored energy shining from within them. And they would look exactly like snakes, the forked tongue and all of that, exactly what they are. Now, they can also shapeshift. So they can shapeshift and look just like humans. And in fact, according to Vedic mythology, there were Nagas that lived on Earth, probably way back when, who knows how many tens of thousands of years ago. And they taught people about the chakras. So it's interesting that there's this belief that chakras were implanted into humans by reptilian beings and they control you. If you want to take that belief, I can sort of skew myself around to say that there's some truth to that, because again, the Nagas control the weaving of karmic timelines. And of course, this has everything to do with chakras as well. If you're in your root chakra and it's not empowered, you're going to be a narcissist. You're going to hoard things. The people that are running this world, the reason why the work that we're doing is going completely unnoticed to them is, number one, we don't have this huge movement, with a lot of people, because they think control of a lot of people is power, which is not true. And so they don't see us there. We're not, I'm not influencing politics or YouTube or, I learned a long time ago to stay out of the things that, the censors don't want me talking about. They don't care that I talk about meditation and higher dimensional beings. They don't care about that. So I don't talk about the things they care about. The things that I'm talking about that they aren't paying attention to is more threatening to them than anything else. So I don't know where I'm going with this, but this is the kind of power that the Nagas have. They have that kind of power over everything. And you'll never be able to outsmart them unless you fully awaken to your God essence. And when you do that, they will worship you. When you do that, you will be immune to any karmic weaving they would do, because there would be no need for it. Remember, why do they weave different karmic timelines? Because your soul is looking for a way to overcome and be empowered. And you can only do that if you go into a karmically limiting situation and overcome the lessons, overcome the challenges, and then you shift up. So if you get to the place where you are completely awakened, I want you to listen to the words I'm saying here. If you get to the place where you're completely awakened to your deity essence, and if you went to the Nagas and said, can you guys create a timeline for me? They would say, no, we can't. You're fully awakened to your deity essence. There's no self-deception within you that we can use, because they need your self-deception to grab onto that and weave a lifetime so that you can have a lesson to work through. So what the light beings want to give you, and this is again during these live guided meditations, how many times in a meditation do I tell you to look into the eyes of the light being and listen to what they tell you about what they see? And then I tell you to repeat it back to them. This is a very powerful method of awakening to your godhood. And it's the fastest method that I know of. And this is the challenge. I am going through this challenge. I've told you about some of the absolutely bizarre, fantastical realities that the light beings have showed me. You know, the one that you now know of, which I held on to for 2 years, was that according to them, I was the original king of Earth during Atlantean times. And, I'm responsible for the fall of humanity and Earth and all of that. And I'm now being called to take back the throne and lead Earth to the 5th dimension. Now, as I say that, I can hear how absolutely bizarre and crazy sounding that is. But from the light being's perspective, they are waking me up to my non-3D identity. And when you look at the whole of it, I mean, think about it. If I say what I just said in the context, it sounds so unbelievable. Except if you expand into the understanding that this is only one planet in one universe. And in that one universe, there are perhaps, potentially infinite numbers of societies and planets just within our universe, in our dimension. And if we know that there are, beings and deities who rule over entire galaxies and planets, being king over one planet, it's not that big of a deal. Somebody's got to do it. It's just hard for me and my ego, because I'm just this one tiny person. I got no influence in this world. I'm a nobody in this third dimensional reality, except for the few people that know me and like me. Outside of that, the world doesn't have any. So it's very hard for my ego to accept this. It sounds so unbelievable. But from the light being's perspective, they are awakening me. Now, I haven't told you what they've told me since then. Just in the past few days. I am not ready to talk about that yet. It's just, I'm still awakening to it. But they're very clear. They say the faster that you awaken to these realities, the faster you're going to shift out of here. You're already in the 5th dimension. You're already there. You just have to awaken to it. Anyway, I'm getting in the weeds again. So the universal egg, Shiva at the top, Nagas at the bottom. Nagas worship and serve humans who live from their soul. So this, again, the most important book of mine that you can get, if you want to get it, go to michaelwilliamdenny.com. What's the exact website you say? It's right there, michaelwilliamdenny, DENNEY.com. The most important book you'll ever read is The Shamanic Secret Commandment to a Perfect Life. And that was something I wrote 15 years ago, I think. And I wrote it because I had come to the end, the absolute end of me trying to live according to, what the world wants you to live. Have a job, earn money, save money, buy a house, all of that stuff. I've never been able to do that. I finally, 15 years ago, after getting divorced, after being a house husband, after doing all that and having no marketable skills, and forced with, how am I going to survive? I made the decision that I wasn't going to do what people normally do. I wasn't going to go find some job. I wasn't going to go try and, some other side hustle or whatever. I just decided that if the universe was a just place, which I didn't know, but I just decided that the universe has to be a just place, otherwise it wouldn't exist. It would cease to exist if it wasn't just. So just using my common sense, I came to that conclusion. I said, well, if the universe is a just place, then it means that my soul is God. If my soul is God, then that means this matrix has to obey me. But in order for that to happen, I have to be operating from that. So how do I do that? Well, my soul, I came to realize, is joy, is bliss. I came to realize that my soul came to this three-dimensional earth not to suffer through karma. Sounds like I'm contradicting myself, and I kind of am. But my soul didn't come here to work through sins or karma. My soul came here to have fun, to be challenged and to have fun. And so I deduced, if I only do the things that bring my soul joy, not my brain, not my ego, not my nervous system, not my addictions, because people have asked me, well, what if my soul desire is to little kids? And I'm like, well, that doesn't give anybody joy. You might be sick enough that might give you some thrill, or you have some addiction, or it might be an escape, Well, what if my soul desire is to, mainline heroin in my neck? Well, that's not fun. That's a distraction. What if, gambling, they come up with all these things. None of those things are joy. At best, they are an addictive distraction. That's why money, fame, I'm going to make a prediction here that very soon, all of the people who have been thriving off of their celebrity, actors, musicians, politicians, etc., people whose entire wealth and status and self-esteem has come from that, these people are going to crash very hard. You're going to see this. Celebrity is going to become meaningless. I don't know how long it's going to take, but let's say, we fast forward 100 years, I guarantee you that whole idea of celebrity won't exist. People will not get their self-esteem or any kind of security out of that because it won't exist. So there's going to be a crash and a fall. The elites are going to fall. Everything having to do with the elites. So yeah, your soul doesn't get off on that. Your soul gets off on whatever it gets off on. Now, my thing has always been, and I've denied it. I've spent, twice, a decade at a time in my life. There are 2 decades in my life where I acted contrary to this, and I was very miserable. But my thing is, I want to live near the beach in hopefully tropical or subtropical conditions, and I want to surf. That's it. There's nothing else I care about. That's the only thing that gives me that soul joy and that essence. The other thing is this work. So I made a decision 15 years ago, even though I didn't have any external evidence to back it up. I said, if what I'm thinking is true, that the universe is just, and that my soul came here to have fun, and that my soul is God, then therefore what I'm supposed to do will be found only in what gives me joy. And if I commit to only do those things, regardless of the challenges in front of me, the universe will have to give me everything I need, all of the resources, in order to accomplish that. And I made that my philosophy, and it was my warrior's dedication. That was my battle, that I was going to accomplish that, and I likened it to a battle. Like my ancestors, the ancient Germanic people said, those who die in battle go to Valhalla. That's not dying, getting a sword in your neck because you're trying to steal somebody's land. It's that you were willing to die for the joy of your heart. And if you die in that battle, you will go to heaven. On the physical 3D, it means that when you die to the need to live according to the consensus, where, the idea, and again, I run into people like this, people who are, in one case, I'm thinking of a guy I know I think he's in his late 30s or early 40s. And you can see it weigh on him because he talks about how, I really should buy a house and get a mortgage. And I'm like, why? Well, because, and then I can see that there's really no answer to that. That we've been convinced to believe that that's what a successful person does. And I'm thinking to myself, he didn't ask. If he did, I would have told him. But I'm thinking to myself, the word mortgage literally means death grip, because you're completely giving your life over to a bank. You don't own the house. The bank owns the house. You rent it from the bank. But the bank, even though you're renting and paying interest on your loan on a house that the bank owns, even though all that's going on, if there's something goes wrong with the house, the bank doesn't go and fix it for you. You have to then pay to fix it. And as people are finding out, in my hometown, Rancho Palos Verdes, California. Actually, I lived in Palos Verdes Estates, but Rancho Palos Verdes was, that whole place is coming apart. The land is sliding, and the houses are completely unlivable. People are having to vacate their houses, but they can't get any insurance on it. So the insurance isn't coming back and giving them, $20 million for their house. The insurance company is saying, "Oh, we can't cover acts of God. The house is, the land is slipping and sliding." But they still have to pay their mortgage for their house. They still have to pay taxes for their house that they can't live in. That's what you're getting yourself into when you get in a mortgage. You're putting yourself in that position. You lose your job. You lose your income. Even though you've paid 20 years on a 30-year mortgage, the bank isn't going to go, you know what? You've paid for 20 years. You have 10 years left. We're going to let you have the house, and they're not going to do that. You will have paid all of that money and all of that interest. They will take the house away from you. With all of the money that they've made from you, they've been paid whatever it is it cost them, and then some. And then they'll turn around and sell your house to somebody else, and then they'll make money off of that. That's not just. What kind of an idiot does that? Everybody on planet Earth does that. And not only do they do that, they're driven to do it by this belief that they're a good person. They're successful if they do that. I'll never do that. So how did we get on that? I don't know. How did we get on that? So Nagas worship and serve humans who live from their soul. So if you live from your soul, go get that book. Learn how to do that. That's the easiest, most practical thing you can do. It's the most spiritual thing you can do. The most spiritual thing you can do is to bring yourself your deepest joy. And I know there are people listening to me that don't even know what their joy is. They don't even know what it is. That's the sad part of living in this world. This world has programmed us to a point where we don't even know what our soul wants us to do. But if you can figure that out and you live from that, the Nagas will worship you like a god, and they'll do whatever you tell them. As long as you're instructing them to do something based on your soul. They'll obey you. Now you try and tell them to do something that's not connected to your soul. They might weave another karmic something or other for you, or they won't respond, because they can see when you're operating from your soul. So, and in fact, as you know, when 15 years ago, when I did this, when I came to this conclusion, I wasn't doing it for any other reason other than I just wanted to be happy. That was it. My only thinking was, screw all this, being a good citizen, and screw all this, religious nonsense. Screw all this being moral and awakened and healthy. Screw all that stuff. I don't care about that. I just want to be healthy and happy. So what do I got to do that? And that's how I came up with that understanding. Now, when I first started interacting with light beings, and in 2022, and I did CE5, and I really committed to that, and I started having these interdimensional experiences with these beings. As you know, one of the first things they said was, first they said, we're going to make you king of Earth. Then they said, you're already king of Earth. And then they said, you were king of Earth, 13,000 years ago. This is who you are. And at one point, of course, I can't believe this. I can't, it's just so, I'm really thinking I'm losing my mind. And so I'm asking these questions like, I don't understand, why me? And one of the reasons was, they said, because you figured it out. I said, what? You figured out the shamanic secret. You figured out the most important thing in every single universe. And they said, even the gods live by that. The gods live by that rule. So when you do that, when you live by that becomes your focus, and you're successful at listening to your soul and living your joy, you become more powerful than any of the gods. And all of the gods get on their knees and worship you the moment that you do that. And they said, that's why we picked you. Because we knew that, we saw, when you did that, we saw that you were the person who was going to be able to lead the earth in a way that would empower them, that you would be able to create a frequency for the earth that would allow human beings to expand spiritually, because you would be intending that understanding. And it has nothing to do with you, how much you meditated, or, what a moral person you were, or how spiritual you were, or how wise you were. It had nothing to do with that. None of that means anything. So it's important to understand this. I'm not perfect. Whatever, the Buddhist perfection of non-attachment and I haven't achieved that. I still have all of my human reactions. I don't act on them. I work very hard to stay conscious so that I only act in ways that are helpful to me and to others. And that is second only to my actions to give myself everything that makes me happy. So they said that has nothing to do with you not it's not about having perfect loving thoughts all the time. It's not about any of that. It's about understanding that the most important thing is living from your soul. And I learned a very, very important lesson here. And I'm not going to get specific. I'm not going to name names. But somebody that was in my life for a very long time, who I looked at as my example. He was like the last teacher figure that I looked upon as an example. And he operated from more of that, enlightenment is constantly forgiving and tolerating other people and never having a negative thought. And, he was kind of in that realm. He probably wouldn't characterize himself that way. But, he did go on that, that level. And that's something I never really bought into that part of his life. But I secretly sort of felt, he's more enlightened than I am. And then I recently found out that actually what was behind all of that was his self-devaluation, his codependence, and that he had spiritualized his codependence, which is selfishness. It's seeking to be loved and accepted. And I realized that that was still more important to him than his soul. And the light being said, that's why we picked you. It has nothing to do with the fact that you aren't, it has nothing to do with the thoughts and reactions and desires that you have. It has nothing to do with that. The person who is God, and again, this is why in the mythology the gods are supposedly human. They're imperfect. There is no perfect. There is no place. I'm here to tell you, there is no place between here and the top of that egg. There is no place in any of these dimensions where people are free of desire and attachment in their own way. There is no place. So everybody trying to achieve that perfect place, it doesn't exist. There is no enlightenment endpoint. Even Shiva himself, even Shiva at the top of that egg is seeking to achieve his bliss. He's still going towards his desires. There isn't a place where you're free of them. And there shouldn't be, because the whole point of consciousness is desire. Fulfilling the desire of your true conscious self. All right, so the Nagas will worship and serve the humans who live from their soul, meaning following their deepest desires. And knowing the difference between your desires and your attachments and your distractions, your false ego. You know, the person I described that presents this egoless thing, it's actually false humility. It's actually ego turned in on itself. I would never say to this person, and I'm pretty sure they won't see this, but that's the lesson I learned. And I went, oh, I've moved beyond that. The light beings have said, true selfishness from the soul perspective is enlightenment. And to be clear, it's impossible to live your deepest desires and harm somebody else. So you don't have to worry about it. You don't have to worry about, should I do what I want or what is best for others? You never have to have that discussion with yourself. Because by definition, your soul is connected to everybody, so your soul isn't going to want anything that's harmful to somebody else. Now, it doesn't mean that somebody else isn't going to get upset that you do it, but that's because they have agendas on you, and or you are vibrating out, beyond where they are, and they're not going to like that. I've had this. Other people watching this video have had this, where people have literally said to me, and they said it to other people as well, your frequency bothers me. I can't be in your presence. Just your presence bothers me. Now they'll project all kinds of other things. Like this one person was saying that I was evil and judgmental, and I was selfish, and I was a narcissist. And of course, those things aren't accurate. The things that they were projecting that I was thinking about them and wanting for, none of those things were true. But the truth was when they said, your frequency really bothers me. That part was true. When you operate from your soul, your frequency is going to bother those that are in a lower frequency. And there's no way around that. So it doesn't mean that following your soul, that everybody's going to like it. Following your soul means that you won't harm anybody. So those people who have rejected me and those people who have rejected you, if they've done that to you, their soul's going to remember. And at some point, either in their, when they leave this body and they have a life review, they're going to realize, oh my God, the reason I was so upset was because that person was following their soul, and their soul will go, I want to do that. I'll give you an example in my life. My father was an alcoholic. He pretty much drank himself to death. And I walked away from drugs and alcohol when I was very young, and my dad didn't like that because it made him look bad. Now wouldn't have said those words, but that was the reality of it. It intimidated him and made him look bad into himself. So when he passed away, he was sick, and I went and spent time with him, when we knew he was going to go. And what would happen is we would just sit down and we'd say, hey, how are you? And we'd do the greeting for 5 or 10 minutes, and then we would just sit there in silence for a half an hour because we had nothing to talk about. There was so much discomfort. There was really nothing that we could say to each other. And I know that when he passed away, when his soul left this body, wherever his soul is going next, he's going to take my example with him. Now, I was following what was best for my soul. He didn't like it, but it was helping him. My life on this planet, my example, was continuously helpful and nourishing to him, even though he didn't like it. So it's impossible to live towards your soul and harm somebody else, even if they don't like it. So going beyond morality and spirituality, I talked about that. The Nagas want you to awaken to your God essence. We talked about that. So if you want to communicate with these beings, you can. The path is open like never before in the history of the human race. Has there ever been a time that you are more able to communicate with these amazing beings? And you can do that if you want to do your own meditation. What helps is if you're new to it, if you do the practices I teach here at thunderwizard.com, whether it's the 90-day challenge or the Maoshan 5-element practices or the Qigong, the Awakening the Immortals, those things will open up a higher dimensional portal. And then you can go into meditation. It's very simple. Just imagine that you leave your body. You can imagine. You don't have to feel it. It doesn't have to really happen. You don't have to see it perfectly. Your intention is the only thing that matters. So just intend that you're going to pull your energy out of your consciousness, out of your chest, and allow yourself to go down into the earth, deep, deep, deep below the earth level, and go all the way down to the deepest level. The safest way to do it is to think of the deepest level of the earth, because the earth will protect you. In case you're worried about passing through those hells, you don't have to worry about that. Just go deep into the earth, all the way to the center of the earth. And when you get there, you will emerge into this cavern. Now, this cavern is lit only by gemstones. So there will be multicolored gemstones that light the place up. And it's this beautiful heavenly place. It's like equal to heaven in brilliance and beauty because of all of these gemstones. And the Nagas are there. All you have to do is just simply ask, would anybody like to come and speak with me? And does anybody have any energy for me or any advice for me? Or you can just hunt around and look for gemstones. Talk to the gemstones and put them into your astral body. These kinds of things. If you want to interact with the Nagas, this is a way to do it, and they're waiting for you. And even if you do it and you don't have a huge experience, just imagine an interaction between them. I guarantee you something's going on. The only thing that matters is your intention. And if you reach out to them and you say, I want a deeper experience, keep asking for that. You can also do CE5, which is Close Encounters of the Fifth Kind Protocol, which is same thing I just said. Imagine your energy coming out of your chest. Imagine that your energy rises up into Earth's atmosphere, outside of Earth's atmosphere, and now you're in space. And then send out a specific request. Send your intention to the Naga physical homeworld, because there is a planet where these beings exist, and they are extraterrestrials, and they have extraterrestrial spaceships and technology, and they're extremely powerful, very helpful, incredibly loving beings. They're so loving. It's unbelievable. You just send out the mental invitation to the Naga homeworld for an extraterrestrial to come and visit you, and ask if you want to go outside and look up in the sky. Ask for them to fly into your airspace. Now, they might not do it because the deep state has the technology to detect 3D spacecraft. So if they manifest in the third dimension, they expose themselves to getting shot down. So they might not, but you never know. They have, and they might do it again. But I guarantee you that if you ask for them to come and visit you astrally or in another dimension, they might come and visit you. You might sense their presence. They might come to you in dreams. So I encourage you to do that, because this world is going away. And all of these beings of light, all of them, higher dimensional beings, the gods, all of them, whether they be physical or non-physical, or whether they have the ability to send their astral body to you, all of the conscious beings outside of the third dimension are completely focused on helping you. And there's I can't even count. There's so many of them completely surrounding Earth right now, responding to anybody who asks for help. So this is why we do these live guided interdimensional meditations. If you're not that good, I'm happy to guide you through it so that you can have an experience. And that's my goal. My only goal in this life right now is to help awaken and free as many people as I possibly can. And, if I have any power or influence to be able to do that, I am. And I'm basically in the lifeboat. The Titanic is sinking, and I'm sitting in the lifeboat. I'm saying, come on, get in the lifeboat. Get in the lifeboat. There's an island right over there where we'll be safe. And there will be people who won't want to leave the ship. There will be people who believe that the ship is not sinking. But those that want to, come on to the lifeboat with the rest of us. All right, so that's those are all of my blatherings for today. So we'll talk more about the Nagas, because they are rising into our reality more and more. And I had so much DMT flowing in my brain earlier today when I sat down and I started thinking about them. And the more I thought about it, the higher. I was going into a 5D place of bliss. I was barely in my body, and so I wanted to share my experience with you guys. So anyway, I'm going to stop babbling now. Thank you so much. Please remember, you are the most important being that ever existed. You are God. And if you awaken to it, you can become the king of the gods. You can become more powerful than any other deity, any other conscious being. There's, it's equal opportunity. But the only requirement is you have to awaken to that within yourself. So I encourage you to do that. Understand that there is nothing you can do that will make you more lovable than you are right now. You are the most lovable you are simply because you exist. So focus solely on your existence and solely on your soul. That's it, my friends. I love you. Please take very good care. Until next time. Oh.